In this play, we are in a meeting hall of some kind.
This could be a physical room or a virtual room.
What's important is that we're all gathered in a collective space.
The silences should be trusted.
The glitches should be embraced. The questions should be reflected upon.
Town Hall invites us to consider our relationship to one another and to the environment in which we live.
Engaging in courageous conversations about the political and ecological issues in our everyday lives.
With accelerated news feeds and social media timelines, it is more important than ever to harness the art of conversation to build a better future.
Part play, part dream, part meeting.
A group of disconnected people come together,
feeling their way towards connection.
Scene 1. A space that feels serene, boundless, quiet. It may seem a little eerie, but that's okay. We're here and it's fine. There's light and a space to dream. So, we dream.
Listen. It wasn't always like this. This feeling, weighted, odd. It started after that night.
After it all happened, and we thought that the world was over.
Because it was. It had been for some time.
Although we pretended otherwise.
At least I did. Me and my friends.
Me and my family.
Me and my lovers.
People. The people we meet.
The people that become part of our lives.
Listen. It was last night.
It was a millennia ago.
I was here.
We were alive.
The trees were in bloom. Everything seemed possible.
Even though we were afraid, because we had grown up with fear.
And we knew that things were not okay. Could never be okay.
Because okay doesn't exist. It is a dream.
Like this one.
Just like this one.
You don't know this. You don't know this is a dream.
Because, well, how could you? When you don't know me.
Or my friends, or the ghosts that I talk to sometimes.
Listen. It's strange, but if you're okay with that.
Then we can talk about the animals and how they show up sometimes.
And how lots of them have slowly died.
And how we can't even remember who we said hello to this morning because we were thinking about cereal instead.
Flax and seeds and dead shopping malls. That's what we were thinking about.
When everything stopped.
When everything stopped.
And all we wanted to do was dream. Actually, let me start over.
Let us all, please.
I haven't even introduced myself.
We haven't even...
This is me and my friends. Or shall I say some people that I've come to know.
Hello.
Hello.
This is a hall, a place to gather. It's been around for a long time. They say it's somewhere that people come when they want to talk to each other, especially when they've been through some sort of trouble in their lives. This is not a church. It is just a room. There are some chairs, some light, and a pot of coffee. There is the door where you walked in, and over there is a window that you cannot see. Outside the window is a street. Sometimes there's noise, and sometimes we'll hear it. But most of the time we'll pretend that we don't. I would ask you, though, not to ignore it, because noise is part of our lives. I mean, even here, even in silence.
Now,
this here, what we're doing, is what some people call a play.
Or what other people call what happens in a theatre.
Or what some people find really, really odd and uncool, and a slightly stupid thing for grown-ups to be doing, when good tax dollars could be going to something else.
Something more useful.
More necessary.
More important.
Oh, this is not important. I'm going to say this right now. This is not important, but it's just a play.
We're not going to cure world hunger.
Poverty.
Rampant inequality, sexism.
Racism, global capitalism.
Isolationism, or any other kind of ism you could think of.
I'm sorry. I mean, I really am. Although, don't you think it's a bit piggish to think a mere play can change the world? I mean, yeah, that's what we're talking about. I mean, have I said that already? I mean, that's why we're here.
Do you think we're joking?
If you do, I'm going to tell you right now, I am not a stand-up comedian. I don't do jokes. I failed every joke class in college. They do have them, in case you're wondering. So this is serious. You know, should we say all of this, all the isms, including feminism and rage.
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 All of this, under these rather alarmingly poor lights, is serious business.
But it is also, in the end, just a play, so no harm will be done.
And these days.
These days.
Well, that is something, isn't it?
When you walk down the street, are you afraid? How many times do you feel afraid? Do you count them? Ever? Have you forgotten what fear feels like? Have you given up? Do you think it's just ordinary? How many times a day do you think about the fact that most of the rainforests have been hacked away?
Do you even care?
How many times a day do you think about the violence done to black and brown people around the world?
What do you do about it?
Do you go to sleep at night and pray tomorrow will be better? Are you wishful? What do you want most in life?
Hello, hello, is everyone okay?
Maybe.
So, we're all friends here, and we can say that if we want, or we can pretend to consider the fact that we may become friends after being here for some time. Oh, coffee? It's really bad, but it's coffee.
I hurt all over.
Yes, well, we all do. I mean, that's why we're here. And this is not therapy, I'll have you know. It's not religion either, although if you have some kind of faith, then we will respect that. We're just here to talk, be with each other. I mean, sometimes it's good to do that, even though I know it's hard sometimes being in places like this where people gather, it can feel a bit...
Really hurt.
Yes. Yes, well, we all do. But we're here. I mean, we made it, right?
I went for a walk today.
Outside?
Miles.
Did you see anyone?
I don't really notice other people anymore. It's all fucked.
No coffee then. Well, how about a biscuit? I have chocolate, marzipan. Oh, actually, I don't have any marzipan. That was a joke. I'm not very good at jokes. But for a moment, I mean, weren't you hopeful for a good joke and some marzipan?
Christmas.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sometimes marzipan at Christmas. Well, shall we start there?
Why?
Well, why not? It is a memory. I mean, it's good to remember the good things, isn't it? After all that's happened. after all that's happened in our lives?
It was a pig.
Sorry?
A marzipan pig for Christmas. My parents gave it to me. But they wrapped it in shiny red paper. They put it under the tree next to the other boxes. I tore through the paper. The pig stared at me. It seemed happy, like it really wanted to be devoured. It seemed serene too, not like at the zoo, where the pigs always looked really battered, sick, upset, and hungry.
I hate the zoo.
This pig looked like it had a smile, a Christmas smile. I thought it might have had something to do with history, like how many pigs did this pig know? How many other marzipan pigs had been in its family? I was a child, I thought these things. Just like I thought of my neighbours who had nothing for a long time. Even though some said we lived in one of the richest places in the world. I knew they had nothing. I felt awful for them, but I couldn't do anything for them because we had little more than nothing. That's all, just a little more.
Useless.
My parents were always talking about money. People hate when you talk about money, especially about not having it. They make faces, they fidget, they throw their hands up in the air, or they look at their phone.
Phone, yeah.
They pretend they have an important phone call, or, they don't want to feel responsible, you see? Because they think you're asking them for money when you talk about not having it. Right. My parents just... I tried to tell them, but they wouldn't listen because they thought they were just being honest. When they talked about money to other people, they thought if someone asked them how they were, they should answer. Actually answer. They didn't understand rhetorical. They thought people wanted to have a real conversation and an honest dialogue.
Honest dialogue.
My parents had no idea how the world worked. I felt sorry for them sometimes. They trusted people, you see? They wanted me to trust people too, but I couldn't. Not even with a marzipan pig in my hands, not even when I put it in my mouth. Not even when I ate its head and its little feet and saved the body for last. I knew no one could be trusted. Not even the gods, wherever they were, looking down at us, laughing at us,
mocking us,
tormenting us,
torturing us,
making of us fools, servants, peasants, and slaves.
Fucking peasants.
I knew we were alone and nothing could save us. Not trust, not love, not even being here in places like this.
Halls of forgiveness.
Fucking words.
Looking at each other, looking at our hands, wondering why we're still here on this earth when everything has stopped making sense.
Like that song.
Like that old song that I can't get out of my brain. Hurts.
Yes.
There is a memory you have about a joke that was once told. A really funny joke.
There is a place, you remember, that seemed to contain everything in the world.
There is the way you felt when you were walking down the motorway and everything seemed as if it were going to be fine.
There is a memory you have about being held close, being touched by and through love.
There is a place, you remember, where people really talk to each other and really listen.
There is the way you felt when you were swimming in the pool and everything seemed as if it were going to be fine.
There is a memory you have about happiness It is a good memory. It lasts a long time.
Hello. Hello. Is everyone okay? So, we're all friends here. And we can say that if we want. Or we can pretend to consider the fact that we may become friends after being here for some time. Coffee? It's really bad, but it's coffee.
I hurt all over.
Yes. Yes, well, we all do. I mean, that's why we're here. And this is not therapy. It's not religion, although I have nothing against it. And sometimes it can do us good to think beyond ourselves, outside ourselves. Faith can be useful as a means to get by.
Like cereal.
Sorry?
Like cereal in the morning, flax and seeds. A kind of faith.
Being here has nothing to do with cereal.
I like cereal.
Perhaps we should look at this another way. Okay, this hall, this place we're in, this space that holds us, it has a kind of resonance.
Like sounds?
Reverberations, yes. And these sounds, as you put them, this resonance extends beyond us, beyond this hall, this place, this room. It extends for miles and miles.
What we say here goes cross miles.
Could, yes.
No fucking privacy anymore.
No, that's not what I meant.
Nothing left to ourselves.
It's a metaphor.
What?
The concept of resonance. I don't mean to say that what we actually share here will travel, but I just mean to say that the invisible nature of our words, our feelings and our hurt, it could be felt outside this door.
Invisible nature?
It could be felt as echoes and vibrations in the air.
What the hell for?
Progress.
Is this a joke? Is this one of your jokes?
I don't tell jokes.
I don't want my words traveling out any door. Come here for them to be locked in, right? Come here to be safe and protected, not out in the open, not out in any open with the dead trees and the starving rabbits.
No broadcasting.
Sick to hell of everything being broadcast, amplified, made fucking visible. My hurt's mine. And mine only. It doesn't belong to anyone else.
Maybe we should have some coffee. Sugar? Cream?
Progress.
It's not real cream. It's the processed kind, but it's something. It's good to feel good about something.
Fucking coffee.
It is good to feel good about something.
Old. Coffee.
Is it?
Useless.
We can think on the past then.
Hmm?
Moments of happiness. Moments of anything.
Sex?
Sure.
Tongue on my sex?
Okay.
Hands on my back.
Torso.
Tongue in my mouth?
Thought.
Down my neck.
Pulsing.
On my stomach.
Lips?
Feeling something.
Animal.
Feeling.
Tears?
In my heart.
Wanting.
Animal.
Craving heat.
Craving.
And then?
Gone.
Yes.
I think what we were thinking was...
How did we grow up? What made us? What made us the way we are?
I think what we were thinking was...
How we miss people. People we love. People we admire. People we never said thank you to when we should have. When we should have known better.
I think what we might be thinking is...
how can we live better lives? Ones without trouble. Ones where we can rely on things, and people, other people.
Hello. Hello. Is everyone okay? So, we're all friends here. We can say that if we want. Or we can pretend to consider the fact we may become friends after being here for some time. We've been here for some time already. We could use the word friends if we wanted to. Coffee? Listen, this is not therapy. We're just here to talk, be with each other. I mean, sometimes it's good to do that, even though I know it's hard. Just last night, I was thinking about how hard it is to have a really good chat. And I don't think I've had one in years. Not one that hasn't been something to do with politics, sex, or work. I miss the art of conversation because, I mean, it actually is an art, you know, a real something between people. Do you know what I mean?
Feeling alone.
Well, that's not what I mean.
After all that has happened, I just feel alone.
I feel like hitting things.
Isolation, violence.
No, not isolation, just alone. Like, we're here, yeah, but we're alone. Even in this room, we're alone, alone with all of our stuff.
And all of the stuff in the world.
And all the stuff we have inside.
Even when we let it out.
Even when we feel like hitting things, yeah.
Or actually hit things.
Or kick things.
We're still alone.
We're still fucking alone.
And we can't even see the future.
What future?
Can't even imagine it.
What future?
The one after.
After this, yeah.
After the dying trees and the starving rabbits and the dead shopping malls?
And the bones.
The bones of all those we loved.
And all those we hurt, and all those we screamed at.
And all those we hit.
And raged.
And touched.
And gave our fists to.
And gave our hearts to.
And our mouths.
And our lips.
And our eyes. Before our eyes.
Before the ghosts of those we carry with us.
We can't imagine.
Because to imagine
would mean we thought there was something.
After this. Different than this.
Better than.
Well, it is possible that we could imagine something different about how things are run and who has liberty and who doesn't and that sort of thing. But because in rooms not unlike this one, such decisions are being made about our lives every day. I mean, isn't that right, Sam? Oh, may I call you Sam?
Sure.
I mean, in rooms just like this one.
Bigger rooms, actually.
Well.
With better lighting.
Okay.
And better coffee.
The point being, Sam, is there are rooms.
Of course.
I mean, similar to this one, where the labour of imagination takes place. I mean, like the labour of imagining a different state of things.
The way things could be in the world.
An alternative. Yeah.
A dream.
In fact, I mean, some of us are dedicated to the pursuit of such dreaming. I mean, you are, for instance.
Not every day.
But some days.
Sure, I spend hours and hours imagining another kind of city, country, place, and to tell you the truth, look, can I tell you the truth?
Of course, you can say anything here.
Really?
Well, almost anything. No. Anything.
Well, sometimes it all feels very stupid, very insular, very small, you know, because, well, who the hell cares what I imagine? There are those that never went to any kind of university that probably are much more capable at that kind of dreaming. Like, they may have already seen the future.
They may have already imagined it. Their dreaming may be inside us. Theirs, not ours. From years and years ago, from the villages, huts and cabins and caves, from the wilderness, from the ice, from the blistering sand and heat, from the oceans, from the languages we will never speak. For all we know, we're quoting them. Understand? I'm just a person, like anybody else.
Yes, but history.
Did our wars teach us anything about the roles of the victors and the conquered? We go to war anyway. We seek power, we seek vengeance, we follow our greed, our pride, our blindness, our madness.
Plenty of madness.
And people die. Families are destroyed, places are wrecked beyond imagining. Beyond imagining. Ruins. Where once there was life. Ruins. Where once there was life. And it's people in rooms that have done this. Rooms not too dissimilar to this one, but with better lighting, better coffee and tea.
Well.
Because what are we talking about? Humans against humans. Humans against animals. Humans against nature, earth, water, air, the air we breathe. Humans against everything. Listen. Listen. We are here. We are the ones left in the cold with the dying trees and the hungry rabbits and the cereal that tastes like sand in our mouths. We are the ones left to imagine.
Last night.
This is not therapy. This is not religion.
Last night.
We're just here to talk. Be with.
I was freezing.
Yes?
It was blazing hot and I was freezing. I couldn't stop shaking, thinking of everything. After all that has happened, after all that's happened in our lives, thinking of the way the marzipan pig felt in my stomach when I was a kid, and how guilty I felt for eating it in the first place. I didn't need it, but who the hell needs a marzipan pig?
Useless.
I was so stupid and hungry, so selfish, stupid and hungry. I should have given it to my neighbours. They were the ones who had nothing. They were the ones who couldn't afford Christmas.
Go to church, my parents said. Send your prayers up, the gods will hear you. There will be enough for everybody one day. It's not up to us.
One day we will be...
It's not up to us to make things better, make things right.
We'll be the future.
It's not up to us to change the world order.
We can't change things.
The world's too big.
The project for millions.
Do something else. Get a job.
Eat your cereal, flax and seeds, chew and swallow, go shopping. Don't look anybody in the eye. Don't speak to your politicians.
Don't demand anything. Even when it seems impossible, even when the noise gets so loud you want to burst.
Stay quiet, stay good, stay dutiful.
Head down, arms at your sides, quiet, good, stupid, hungry.
Quiet, good, stupid, hungry.
And when you're tired, when you think the noise of everything will eat you alive.
Shout!
Into nothingness.
Scream!
Your pillow.
Stare at a wall.
Hold it all in.
Sweat, tremble, fear.
Don't let anyone see.
Sweat, tremble, fear.
Because the minute they do,
they will spot you.
They will seek you out and they will ask you for things.
They will beg.
And it is then you must tell them, listen,
I have nothing. I am nothing.
But a poor, miserable human being that just wants to go down the motorway without being scared for their life?
Normally, this is where I would say, okay, we're done here. We've done our talking, shared our bit. Time to move on. I mean, go out into the world and sort it all out yourselves. I mean, you're all adults, most of you. You can do it. I mean, other people have done so before. Other people have faced far worse times than this, and they managed, right? Listen.
Listen, many of them didn't even imagine a future because, as far as they were concerned, tomorrow wasn't another day. The end times were now.
So, really, even if, after all that happened, we did think that the world was over, we did think that rabbits were stretched out against the snow, frozen, lifeless, with their little mouths open in fear.
We're here. I mean, some of us.
We actually came into this room. We actually thought being in the presence of each other mattered.
Despite our rage and our shouting and all the mess we carry around with us inside.
Let me tell you something. Just to be a person, because you're probably wondering something about me. The other day, a friend showed me a photograph of a piece of paper on which they'd written the following words. After Sandy Hook, after Norway, after Boston.
After Kenya, after Damascus, after Charlie.
After Paris, after South Carolina, after Brussels.
After San Bernardino, after Turkey, after Lockerbie.
After Orlando, after Istanbul, after Bangladesh.
After Baghdad, after Cleveland, after Ferguson.
After Charlottesville, after Parkland, after Pittsburgh.
After Medina, after Dallas, after Nice.
After Aleppo, after Hong Kong, after Iran.
After New South Wales, after Wuhan, after Lombardy.
After London, after Minneapolis, after. Each phrase was crossed out with a black marker, except for the last word, which was followed by an ellipsis that hung suspended on the whiteness of the paper with an eerie kind of expectancy. They said that crossing out each phrase felt like placing a marker on a stone. They said that the piece of paper was too small, but it was all they had at the time they took the photo, so they took it anyway. They said that if they were to do it again, the list would be, should be so much longer. I mean, it could have started in Tokyo.
Or Kuwait.
Or Rwanda.
Or Beijing.
Or Oklahoma City.
Or Beirut. But they didn't want to make another list because making this one had been hard enough. And knowing that they'd have to fill in all of the other afters and all of the befores too was just something they didn't really want to do right now, because they'd rather do something else, like watch a cat video or see a child smile with wonder at the beauty of the world, or play a game with a ball, kicking under their feet, heading for a concrete destination. This friend of mine used to talk to me about success, mostly about feeling as if they had not really achieved much of anything, and that a great deal of time they felt like a failure, or, like a student, waiting for the grown-ups at the table to say, it's okay, you're one of us. I asked my friend what they thought this table would look like. They said it was a stupid question because the table was a metaphor, but I insisted. I mean, if you could take a picture of it, what would it look like? I mean, what would this table actually look like? There was a small silence between us. And then they took their camera, pointed it, and said, like this.
If we're to seek change, real change and not just the echo of it, then we have to change the economic structures in which we live.
It will take hard work, real commitment, and a great deal of failure. But in the end, we may actually achieve a different kind of world.
What are we willing to do? What are we willing to give up in order to live in societies of true caring and fairness?
Sometimes I don't think of anything. Even here in this room, my mind is blank, my heart is blank, my organs are blank. I'm a vessel, nothing more. I move through the world because I have to, because I don't know anything else.
Sometimes all I want to think about is joy. So I make a list. I of all the joyful things I remember. Good coffee, great wine, a day in the park with no rush, no schedule, no clock. Boundless time.
Peonies blooming in the garden, the sight of them magical as I walk down the street.
The match, the win, the brilliant game by my favorite players, the sheer audacity of players absolutely in the moment, giving it their all. For the love of the sport, for the love of us, for the love of us.
Sand between my feet, warm, soothing on a hot day. And then the rush of water, cool, cleansing.
Holding them, my friends, lovers, family.
The people I love.
Just being with them, not having to say a word.
Because sometimes touch is all.
Touch is all.
Light. The light across the sky just before the onset of evening. The light of buildings as if lit from within. Windows and windows and windows of people just living their lives.
Imagine peace. Imagine kind words and actions. Imagine making up after a stupid fight.
Sunday morning, walking down the street, the sound of birds, the rustle of trees.
Tomorrow is another day. Next week will be better.
Feeling anything is possible because sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is, even when you feel blank.
And then waking.
Hopeful, alert.
Is it morning yet? Is the coffee on? Did I do the laundry?
Looking out at the garden and the memory of trees and the sounds of animals just making their noise.
Thinking there is good in the world.
There is. There must be.
And then a song. Through the body from some part of the brain.
From some part of the city. Rising up.
Rising.
Sheer fucking belief in the universe. Some nights I stay up, cashing in my bad luck. Some nights I call it a draw. Some nights I wish that my lips could build a castle. Some nights I wish they'd just fall off. But I still wake up, I still see your ghost. Oh Lord, I'm still not sure what I stand for. Oh, what do I stand for? What do I stand for? Most nights I don't know anymore. Oh, 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 oh.
Sometimes you look up, you think, yes, the sky is calling you to action. It is sending you a sign.
Sometimes you want to rage at everything, even the earth, because you feel as if it has let you down somehow.
Sometimes it's not knowing, walking around with your hands in your pockets, wondering what you could have done with your life.
Sometimes you think you'd rather not look. Let the sky send all of the signs at once, because what can you do?
What can you do?
What can you do?
Hello? Hello, is everyone okay? Coffee? It's bad, but it's coffee.
Faith.
How's that?
Been thinking a lot about faith.
This is not religion, although sometimes it's useful to.
Kind of faith like I had when I was a kid. Miss it. I mean, I would fall asleep at church. The services were always so early. My people would drag me nice clothes, combed hair, clean shoes, sleep. Except for the music. When there was music, I would wake up and connect to something bigger than me.
Like a song.
A choir, a band, a person, it didn't matter. But as soon as voices were lifted into space, I felt this kind of, and I think, why is everyone so serious? Why is everyone so happy, palms raised to the sky? Strange gesture. Why do they do that? And then the music would be over and the person who was leading us through the service would say some words, usually about violence and about not doing violence when there is so much violence all around us.
Like ghosts.
And people would nod and mumble, and some would cry quietly, tears streaming down their face. And others would stare at the ceiling, waiting for the words to be over, because they knew that words could do nothing against violence. But the person would keep talking.
As if the world...
As if they knew what they were saying still needed to be heard. Against violence, practice no violence, attend to the fragility of life. While kids would fidget in their seats, tugging at their clothes, itching to go outside and play or fight or eat sweets, anything to get us away from the routine of church and the words of that person who behaved as if they knew us when they didn't know us at all. And then the music would kick in again, louder this time.
Heard for miles.
And everyone would rise.
Rise up.
And walk back out into the light, thinking about the bills that they had to pay and all of the other troubles that beset them. And on we go.
Because things need to get done.
But now I want it. Not the religion part or the organized thing, but the feeling of faith. The kind of feeling I would have when the music would play. Yeah. That feeling is what I want now.
What would you do with it?
I think I'd look at the world differently. I think I'd be able to face things I don't understand, like what happened. After all happened and we thought the world was over. If I had faith, the kind that I had when I was a kid, I would draw a line.
A map?
A line in the dirt.
A circle for the bones.
To imagine the next.
A circle for the ghosts.
And this line would feel infinite because it would keep going for miles and miles.
A world without end.
And it would make people look.
As if the bones were on fire.
Because this line made of the dirt of our beings, in the dirt of the ground we walk upon, barefoot, helpless, hungry, would be a question.
There is a war in heaven, there is a war on earth.
And this question in the shape of a line.
Our cities are burning.
It would be for those who sit in the halls of power.
Our countries are burning.
Not here, with the bad light and the fucking coffee, but in those other halls where it is said that people sit with ice in their pockets.
Ice in their bones, smiles in their throats while our cities are on fire.
And this question would be so big, so impossible that no one could ever answer it.
The rage of the earth as the ghosts rise.
And it would make the ice in their pockets glacier liquid down their put together clothes.
Tinder the land.
There is a war on our streets. There is a war in our valleys.
There is a war in the bellies of our children, in the bellies of our people, in the hearts of our rivers.
There is a war from another war in the minds of those who have returned.
In the minds of those living, in the hands of those long gone, in the cradle of our earth.
There is a war whose face we do not see, whose eyes we cannot meet, whose tongue we cannot touch.
There is a war that calls to other wars.
When we are bleeding.
When we are kneeling.
When we are martyred on the street, this is a war that cannot cease.
Because we have forgotten the words. We have forgotten the power.
We have forgotten the ways of the ancients and the bitter cries of those in need.
Holla, the war says.
Holla, the war bleeds. As the icy smiles shatter the pulse of the raging earth.
You are the war.
Someone shouts.
You are the war.
Someone pleads.
You are the war that made me.
And it is then that we say.
And it is then that we pray.
Make of me no other war.
Make of me no other being.
Let me be the one who cries
and tries
to surrender to peace.
Of course, we think about faith, even when we don't have it. I mean, even when we profess not to be particularly anything.
Atheist.
Exactly.
Well, it's hard, isn't it? Because there's a kind of courage in belief, after all. Because faith means what? Trust.
To trust. To place your trust in something or someone on the basis of incomplete evidence. I will love you. I will believe in you.
Or I will divorce you.
But the point is, the ground is porous. The ground on which faith stands can't be held because it exists in the space between.
Let's look at it this way. Last night, I was ambling down the motorway. The air was crisp, the sky was serene. I was no more than a few minutes from where I live when I see an animal.
On the motorway?
Side.
Hurt?
No, just there, just being.
Lost, then.
Never had I ever seen an animal on this stretch of the road before. So to see a pair of eyes, a silky coat.
Deer?
No, it wasn't a deer. It was an animal, unlike any I'd ever seen before. And I thought it was looking at me. And before you say anything, no, I wasn't high. So I thought, should I make contact with this creature I don't recognize? And if I do, what will happen?
Horror movie.
All sorts of images in my head, but I wanted to see it up close, which makes no sense.
But in matters of faith.
So I approached it, cautiously. There was a kind of sound in the air, like bells.
Church?
Like stars. The way stars sound.
Do they?
Yes. and the animal stood there, not a move, and for a moment I thought it was scared and that it was looking for its way home, and I stood before it, and the animal stood in front of me. A world of time passed between us. The sound, the noise of the air seemed brighter, clearer. And the animal smiled at me.
Teeth?
No, a smile. Like a person. And then hello.
It spoke.
Just hello. Not the word, but the feeling. And it walked away, down the other side of the motorway, its silky coat gleaming in the first light of evening.
Well, is everyone okay?
Coffee.
Yes?
It's really bad.
Oh, I'll make another pot.
No, well, we should go.
Already?
While it's still light.
And the weather holds.
I'll put the coffee away then.
It's been interesting.
Has it?
To talk, say things.
Be with each other.
Yeah, I mean, at first I didn't.
At first I thought I'd get antsy, but...
Nothing wrong with...
No, I know. Like antsies, whatever, but... We're still here.
Yeah.
Even if the world.
Yeah.
Even if it all still hurts.
And we don't have cereal.
We're still fucking here.
Yes.
Are you heading out too?
Oh, no, I have to clean up.
Well, I just wanted to say, just for the record, like if someone's listening or something.
Like resonance.
I don't like jokes. I thought you should know. I can't tell them either.
Thank you.
But I like singing. I'd forgotten how much I liked it.
You should do it more often.
I think I will. I think I'll sing in the street.
Out in the open. Make some noise.
Gotta do something.
Meet tomorrow.
Sure.
Same time?
Okay.
How long do you think this hall's been around?
For us.
Way, way before us.
Amazing.
Oh, I almost forgot. My name's Ethan.
My name's Sarah.
My name's India.
My name's Irene.
My name's Tamar.
My name's Tasia.
My name's Pearl.
My name's Gabriel.
My name's Lucy.
Not Sam.
No, actually.
Nice to meet you. My name's Esme. The water was blue. Very blue. I pretended I was in the ocean, even though it was just a pool. I liked imagining the immensity of it, feeling as if the water could go on forever and that no one could ever own it. Not even us. My feet were hot. The water was cold. I felt naked to the world, but it didn't matter because we all were. And we were all swimming with our hair and no hair and our sex and imperfect bodies. Listen. It was last night. It was a millennium ago. The trees were in bloom. Everything seemed possible. I was here. We were alive. It was a dream. Just like this one.
Where will you go tonight?
What will you do when this ends?
Will you remember our names?
Will you remember us?
Will you remember this moment?
Great. Hello, everyone. Hello to our group. So here we are, the company, performing and creative company of Town Hall, which you just watched live streamed, we will watch together. And here we are joined by Caridad Svich, our author. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We're really delighted to have you here with us. Thank you. So I just thought I'd maybe just introduce you a little. I mean, we know quite a lot about you, but I just perhaps thought just to let people know that Caridad is, of course, a very prolific theatre writer for and about theatre, both. And she's an OBIE award-winning playwright, as well as an editor and educator. And she's joined here now by many of the students and creatives from Royal Holloway who've just been working on the play of Town Hall this week. So thank you so much for joining us. And I just thought, perhaps, could we start by you telling us a bit about your kind of process, like how Town Hall came about as a play and your journey with it as well, because it's been through some iterations with us, actually, and perhaps with other makers.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rebecca. And hello, everyone out there in the world, as well as here, which is always fun. Gosh, how did Town Hall come to be? I think I'd been thinking about it for a while, but hadn't really found the container. Had been wanting to make this kind of piece for a long time. Deeply, big tip of the hat to Andy Smith, whom I adore, and whose work I am smitten with. And I just remember seeing his work for the first time, actually. He performed a piece called Ibsen Hut in 2005, whenever we were at the same conference together in Leeds. And I just started weeping. And I had no idea why I was weeping about this play where this like sort of unassuming man was just sort of sitting on a chair and kind of talking about Ibsen and the people he met in Oslo. And it was so still, the piece, and how he was working with stillness and presence and directness, kind of an unadorned performativity, just kind of hit me really deep. And of course, at the same time, you know, I'd known Tim Crouch for a long time, so it was sort of interesting to meet one of his collaborators, because he was sort of the mysterious person in the thing. And so then I just remember, like, Ibsen Hut has been like kind of my like talisman for me as a writer. Like, I just hold it. I hold the experience of watching it and also experiencing it very dear. And even though it's not published, and I begged Andy for a copy, and he sent it to me. And then following his work and kind of just thinking about my own practice and thinking about things that I think one of the things that happens when you're a writer is that if you're lucky enough or diligent enough, I should say, luck has nothing to do with it, maybe diligence does, to create a body of work, then what happens is that I think you start to kind of cycle through phases in your writing process. And so this kind of writing I've sort of been doing much earlier in my career, like way before I knew that I wanted to be a playwright, and I was just kind of making things that I thought were maybe theater. And then I just kind of shelved it because I kept being told, that's not a play. That's not a play, and that can never be a play, you know. And so I was just like, oh, okay. And so then I remember I was at a retreat with Ella McLaughlin, who's an extraordinary actor and playwright, and I was supposed to be rewriting another play, and I was so bored, and I was angry, and all sorts of things were happening. And so I started writing something else, which is very similar to this piece, actually. And it's kind of the first stirrings of it, I think, and but not exactly in this container. And we were sitting around the campfire, literally around the campfire. And she said, what's that? And I was like, I don't know. It's not a play, you know? And then she was like, but I think it is a play. Where's this voice in your writing? And I was like, oh, I hide this voice in my writing. And so then she kind of just looked at me like very directly. And she was like, well, don't hide it. And I was like, what? Oh, okay. And then I got like really angry, and at the same time I was really confounded. And then I kind of hid that experience away. And then I think slowly over the last, maybe since around 2013, I've just been rethinking my practice a lot and thinking about form in a different way, and thinking about treating the page in a different way, treating the white space and text and all of that, which I know other people have done, but I hadn't done it in a long time. So, and suddenly all these things kind of converged. And out of that, along with my own sort of artivist practice, and sort of working with human rights and environmental rights, this play emerged. And I knew very early I wanted to write something that repeated, that had this idea of repeats, but that wasn't necessarily that it couldn't imply time jumps in those repeats, but didn't have to. And I wanted to deal with the idea of a gathering place, which of course is what we do when we're in theater. Wanting to make something that was very directly about that space that we gather in, and what does that space mean, and how it is a space often for healing and transformation, but how do we articulate that? And I also wanted to make sure that I was writing, I have a side of my voice that's what I call very electric. It's sort of like firing on all cylinders and really mad, crazy. I deliberately wanted to write something that was very plain spoken and in a kind of conversational vernacular, with moments that do something else, because I can't help being myself as a writer. So I hope that helps. It's gone through a lot of iterations, I should say. It had a workshop at National Theater Institute in Connecticut. It started as a reading. And then it sort of had a mini workshop at the Lark in New York. And then it's kind of just been, kind of shifting. It's the shifting sands of Town Hall. Yeah, but that's like a nutshell.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. It's so many threads in there that I really kind of recognize from the work that we've been doing with it. And I think I'm right in saying for a lot of us, that sense of directness with it, the kind of simplicity and the play with form, like the kind of the sense that there's an openness, both there's a kind of invitation to the audience of some kind, to all of us, but also there's an openness in terms of it. We felt, or the kind of the story we got to was that it's imagining a future, quite a near future. I think, and each time we came back to it, that kind of near future seemed more and more and more imminent. Yes. And kind of whatever the kind of present we found ourselves in. So we started last summer, at the height of a lot of the work that Greta Thunberg was reaching a pitch, and kind of environmental action felt incredibly urgent, and of course still is. But then kind of as we in our process moved through at the start of this year, the group were working on a project to take it to our residency that happens between Royal Holloway and Tate Modern in the Tate Exchange space there, really exploring that interactivity. And of course, COVID arrived and kind of scattered all of that and all of us, but also felt incredibly kind of resonant again with everything that threads through the text. And what's been really, I think, lovely for us is the way we've been able to reconnect in this space now, having done all of that thinking and working through what a theatre space is in terms of the coming together, and how is a theatre space like a conversational space, and how is it something that could heal. I think for us, in a really real way, it's been a really lovely opportunity to draw us all back together. So in the performance you just saw, there were people performing from, they're not able to be here now, but from Singapore, from Hong Kong, dear kind of fellow students of ours from Norway, as well as from all over the UK, from Scotland down to Cornwall. And it's also given us this opportunity to kind of talk to you across the continent. So it's been a really really kind of bumpy parallel journey that we've gone on along with your play, and it's been it's been extraordinary, actually. So thinking, I mean, one of the other threads that really came through very strongly and resonantly this week, I think, in our work as well, was this idea of a conversation, an open dialogue, which is incredibly present, I think, for us within our department and within the UK context now. And I wondered if if you have more to say about what the idea of how can we conduct a conversation in the theatre? How can we kind of open up to each other, or just more about that theme?
Yeah. In the theater. Oh God. I mean, I guess it's loaded because I feel like there's so much inequity in the theater industry, and on multiple levels. But class for sure. That's sort of dividing line for a lot of people in terms of access to buildings, access to organizational structures. Feelings of being left out and excluded. You know, there's just sort of, and I know that there are a lot of wonderful people working really hard to create spaces, make spaces. What does Chris Good say, right? You create a space when you make a play. Create spaces to listen, and really, you know, collective listening. And I think right now the collective listening is compounded, right? So we have collective listening around Extinction Rebellion, we have collective listening around systemic racism, and then what I call the fiscal economic inequity in the theater industry, and how part of it has been hijacked by Oxbridge, by the Oxbridge set. And so I just think that what I worry about, I think a part of me, I'm a creative optimist, so I'm always hopeful that deep acts of listening across the field will lead to a massive change, progressive change. The skeptic in me worries that there's going to be all these, as there are right now, tons of little pop-up, moments where all this happens, and then it's kind of like, oh, we did that, and then nothing really happens, or maybe 2 inches forward. You know what I mean? So I just think it's going to take. It's not just now. It's going to take, like, I think, months and months and years of work to actually the word is dismantle, I suppose, but really dismantle, but also rebuild. And what kind of rebuilding are we thinking about? Because I think that one of the things that does worry me in the skeptical part of my brain is that the rebuilding will be about creating power structures that are exactly the same as the ones that exist now, which doesn't serve anyone any good. If you're just reiterating them, then they'll perpetuate along the lines similar inequities. So yeah.
So maybe we're in a moment of quite radical opportunity. But yes, you're right. What's the force going to be to change all of that? Yes. Well, maybe it's our young people. Maybe it's generational as well. So I mean, so as we've worked with this play, and it has been it's been quite a long process in terms of over time. I've just been so struck. It's a play that I love from the moment that you sent me it, and I read it, and just it really spoke to me. But it's been incredible how absolutely committed and connected to it. I think all of the company have been. It's been really remarkable. So I think it's time to get some questions from you guys, or comments, or thoughts, or responses to anything that Caridad has shared with us. Do any of you raise your hands, I think, or unmute? Yes, Hannah, go.
I love this. As soon as I heard about the first reading that Rebecca, you held last year, I was like, I want to be involved in any way that I can. Literally, sign me up. And one of the things that really struck me was the fact that you write with this just the right amount of distance, so that you're not talking about one thing specifically, but also you're close enough so that you're not disregarding social and cultural issues. And I just wondered what your process is with that, so you can not be completely out of touch but still have this resonance, I guess.
Resonance, I use that word in the play, don't I? Yeah, it's tricky, I've gone back and forth with this. I also write like plays where it's very anchored and there are characters and there are walls and things. But when I work in sort of my more open dramatic form, I guess I'm always keeping in mind that you're writing for the future. So you're kind of, I mean, writing is always happening in the now. You're always responding to the present moment, but a part of you has to be thinking about, no, you're really writing for the 22nd century, you know, in a way. And maybe if you're lucky, you are, and if you're not, it will remain a 21st century artifact. And I guess it's a debate that not a debate, I should say, a conversation that I've had with Alex Sears for a while. Alex is a scholar and critic, and around Sarah Kane's work, and also Beckett, and around Barker, and so many people that are interested in writing for the future. Like, what does that future look like, and how do you write it on the page? And so I think that I just hold a certain kind of, you have to strip the work of enough of the I call them the gadgets of the present, you know, the sort of ticks of the present, so that it can actually live in the future and not feel entirely like an artifact, but with enough. It's an interesting challenge linguistically, but enough to kind of not make it feel as if you're in outer space, so that it's grounded in some way. And so it's just a dance that I play with myself as a writer. And sometimes when I'm working on the early drafts of something, I will make it super specific and super grounded and super anchored. And then I'll just slowly start stripping it until I just see the bones of the work. And then from there, I start to kind of build softly or slowly on top of that, kind of like working. I like to use sort of musical structures, if you haven't guessed, those of you who've been working on this, but kind of building harmonics on top of the melody line. And so, and also thinking about what the rhythm section is doing. So, and that helps me actually thinking of it that way, because then I can sort of see the work more clearly. And sometimes I'll drop in an artifact historically, and then it's a choice, right? Then I go, this is just a reminder of this thing that we used to do once. And I actually love doing that in plays. I love kind of dropping in something that feels like an emblem from a specific historical moment. So that's how I do it.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Of course. Thank you, Hannah.
And I think, Lucy, did you say there's a question through from Gina?
Yeah, so Gina has commented on YouTube, and she played Bee last summer, who Ethan and a few of the others played in this iteration. And she asked, is there an opportunity to discuss the possible inequities between the characters and how casting can either dismantle or perpetuate them? So I think she means this in reference to how E can be appear to be very frustrated and angry with the systems that the characters are discussing, whereas A is much more open and wants to have that conversation, but doesn't necessarily contribute a great deal of personal information to that.
Yeah, do you want to kick that off, Rebecca? Because casting actually is with this play sort of happens in the room, because it's not prescriptive.
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, yeah, so I mean, I think it is true that although on paper there's 4 characters, aren't there? There's A, B, E, and S. So it feels incredibly open, and very specifically, Caridad sort of doesn't gender them, doesn't name them, and there's very little internal to the text that, in fact, there's nothing that indicates gender at all. So I think that the thing that the first time around that we worked on the text, we worked with the 4 characters, each one actor playing each of those characters, and yeah, I guess we sought to create a sense of a biography, or at least a kind of a through line for each of those characters, and yeah, I think it is certainly the case that we, you know, as you dig into that, it feels as though kind of both E and B are definitely the characters who feel much more kind of frustrated, that they carry more burdens in terms of whatever their kind of personal kind of position within the power structures that you're imagining are. And so last time around, it was all women, but there was a kind of definite kind of sense of kind of female frustration to, I think for all characters, but certainly it felt that A was perhaps more privileged in relation to that. You know, she runs the space. And A was mainly played again by Esme, although this time around we have a bigger company, and so that's been really lovely to kind of to thread different people along those different character tracks as well. And this time around, having B played by Ethan rather than by Gina, who is female, brought, I think, definitely different kind of notes to whatever that kind of frustration and some of the violence that is expressed by that character felt kind of activated in a different way. Yeah, so yes, I think you know, I think it is so very open. The choices you make in terms of casting do definitely speak to kind of power structures, and perhaps, you know, need a lot of thought and care. And yeah.
Yeah, and I've done in the very different iterations of developing the play. There have been, I think the first iteration, it was white female playing A. There was a Latinx male. You guys use the word Asian. His family's from Pakistan. Playing E, and then we had another Latinx actor actually. So sort of interesting. I mean, but it's every time I've done it, it's shifted. Depending, and I'm very interested. And also in one iteration, it was intergenerational. At least one of the characters was figures was played by Karen Kendall, who has been with Mabu Mines for a long time and is a brilliant performer. And but she's like in her, she won't divulge her age, but I'm sure she's close to her like upper end, at least nearing the 60s. And so that changed the dynamic entirely, of course, right? So just been fascinating to see what happens with the text when it's inflected differently. And I'm very interested in how the politics of the play changes when that happens. And of course it does. Yeah. And it's an experiment that I'm interested. It's like a show, not a social experiment, but I think it's a theatrical experiment, but maybe partly social, in terms of how an audience receives material, depending on the visible figure that's presenting that material and what we may assume or not assume about that figure socially. So I'm interested in that, and it's a very complicated and volatile terrain, but I'm interested in having the play kind of be inflected by that.
And yeah, I think it is incredibly open to that. Yeah, which is really, really wonderful. Lovely, thank you, Gina. And here we go. Rosa has a question. Thank you.
Hey, yeah, it's actually related to that, because you're interested in like how different people read it and perceive the different characters. And we had a lot of conversations about the different qualities that each of the characters possess. And like in this version, we spread those characters out and doubled them, and in some characters tripled them, and saw different qualities be unleashed by different people. But there was also, throughout this process, a time where we discussed each of the characters representing one person, and each character, especially during this time when there are so many people grieving and going through a process of grief, it felt more and more apparent that each character represented almost a different stage of grief and the process of healing. And it's really interesting to explore like E as anger, and right up into A to almost that point of acceptance. So each person being a different version of one character. Is that something that you'd ever kind of considered or thought about? Because they're obviously all quite, they're not named until the end, which is an interesting thing in itself, because it leaves it quite open and lucid for interpretation.
Yeah, it's not something I was consciously thinking of, but I think that once you walk into spaces of grief as a writer, what does Anne Carson say? Grief lessons, the grief lessons that exist. That then I think the work maybe starts speaking to those areas. It's interesting because when the very first, maybe the first 2 drafts of this piece actually had no delineation of role. And it's only when I did the first reading of it and I realized, I was like, oh, I need to call people to read. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Then I was like, well, I'll get 4 people. And then suddenly I was like, oh, I have 4. Now I have to actually score it for 4. So the score for 4 happened that way. It actually was not written with 4 in mind. It was just text that was spread out. But that first reading of it sort of made me think of a quartet, which is from a musical standpoint, a form that I love. And so I thought, oh, I can see this as a quartet. That might be fun. But it forced me to make some really big decisions about this particular score. But I'm not, I'm interested in how that could be broken up in different ways because it didn't start that way. So yeah.
Great. Do we have also Irene, who is our performer from Norway, can't join us, but she asked very much for me to express her warm wishes and admiration for your work, Caridad. So,
yay!
Yeah. Do we have any more questions or comments?
I think
Lucy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's another question on YouTube from Dylan, and he says he's curious to know how we adapted and adopted aspects of this of the digital medium into the fabric of the work.
Which I guess in a sense, part of that comes out of the openness of the script kind of meant that in some ways, I say I was very worried by the constant references to a shared space. I kind of I initially felt, yes, of course we have to do this on Zoom. There's so much kind of particularly when we got to the point of when we weren't able to go to the Tate with it felt like no, we must make sure we do something with this. And then kind of sat down and thought about, they're in a physical space, what? But as soon, very quickly when we started working, it felt that it certainly on a text level, almost everything that refers in a really literal way to a physical space felt that it's translatable into this space, which is now our space of connection and coming together, certainly for the time being and perhaps for the foreseeable future. Yeah, how in terms of then thinking, I guess, scenographically about the spaces, that's been really, getting to work on Zoom is really fascinating because we are kind of using our own personal spaces and dressing them and, trying to think about how to kind of, or whether to create coherence or what have you. Hannah, do you want to talk a bit about, so Hannah is very interested in design and did some scenographic thinking about this. Do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things, when we read this a couple of weeks ago, like way before we started filming on Zoom, just a group of us, and one of the lines that really stuck out was, we're here surrounded by all of our stuff and the stuff in the world. Like that was one of the lines that really stuck out to me. And we were reading it on Zoom and we were in our own rooms surrounded by all of our stuff. And I don't think we've ever really had to spend so much time in our own rooms because we're out all day. We just go home to sleep or cook or whatever. And we're never in one space with all of our things, all our books, our, records, any trinkets, that sort of stuff. We're never surrounded by these things for a long time. So I think that line really made me want to think about the scenography so much more, because that it is important that we are still in this space surrounded by stuff and the stuff in the world, but it's a bit more literal and you can actually see it here. We can see all of our personal rooms rather than being in a theatre where it's just all the set pieces that have been purposefully put in that particular spot or on that particular like table or whatever. So it feels a lot more organic to kind of actually be with our stuff in this moment. And one of the things we wanted to do to kind of create this connection between, like Rose was saying about, we've doubled and tripled some of these characters. So there's A1, A2, A3. And to kind of create these through lines, we spoke a lot about colour. So in all of the frames, that's kind of how we try to connect them, but in a much more subtle way. So rather than saying, oh, I'm A, and like having like a big A in the background, or like wearing a certain colour top, just like having the stuff that's around us reflect those colours helped to embed those ideas a bit more subtly. So we had E was orange, S was blue, B was yellow, and A was green. So just try to connect them to these different colours, make it a bit more vibrant, I guess. In short.
Great. Yeah, and it is a very different medium to be working with in a lot of ways. Rosa, do you have a point to add to that?
Yeah, and kind of ask back another question. There were so many parts of it that just fitted so perfectly into a digital world, and it was coming to terms with that idea of this meeting room not being a physical room, but like being a virtual room, which people do call it, and especially as we're moving more into the digital world, is going to become more recognized in a virtual way. But there were other parts, especially even just like editing today and rewatching it, like just then, that whole section about E saying sick to hell of everything being broadcasted is so interesting now, actually watching this be broadcasted, and it's like being made visible into the world. And like, because you go into a room, and I feel like going into theatre is a very intimate experience, because you know exactly the people that you're sharing things with, especially when in the opening up and the questions and reflection section. Whereas now it's live streamed and it is visible to anyone that goes onto it to watch it. And how does that kind of feel to you, having written that section on broadcasting and seeing it turn from something that you've only ever watched through a physical space into a virtual world?
Yeah, I mean, I love the irony of it. So I'm all for like because that creates tension in the piece, right? So if we're saying no broadcasting, but we're actually broadcasting, then I'm like, my work is done as a writer. So yeah, and I think that things that sort of point to that actually help. And I'm a big fan of digital theater. I know there's sort of this bizarre, I think it's slightly bizarre debate. Is it theater? Is it not theater? It's been around for actually a long time. So a lot of people have been doing transmedia work for ages, so I think that it's just sort of silly to suddenly raise your hackles up and go, what? How can this be theater? And I was like, it is, it's just a kind of theater, right? So whether you call it hybrid or digital, or whatever you want to call it, so it is a platform. I think what you don't, this play, I think, does something in a question section that would happen live. The questions were directed to the audience, and then there's an opportunity for the audience to respond, and I feel like that's what I'm missing. And so, but I think there's also a way to do that if you suspend those questions and allow space, like in the chat or something, for an audience to actually say, hey, you're invited, you can respond if you wish, right? So or just think about them, right? There's no obligation for the audience to respond to those questions in the moment, but it poses an interesting demand, like if you were to treat it only as a digital theater piece, and I think that then you'd have to take that into account. But it could also be like a little kit you send the audience and go, hi, we'll send you some questions for home. Like you can respond and send them back to us. I think there's a way around it, so, because I think that's one of the things when I was writing the play that I was really interested in, was the idea of how to, the audience is if we are thinking of it a quartet, the audience is the fifth character, right, in this piece. So, and the audience is always the other character, right? But in this piece particularly, it's a play conversation. So I think that it demands that. but yeah, like, but I think there's ways to do that, and I've been seeing people do it in the digital realm for a while, and I think there could be really creative ways of doing it. I did a piece once with a company called Pop-Up Theater that was a one-on-one piece at the Edinburgh Festival, the Fringe, and so it was just a one performer on camera on Skype to one audience member. But the end of the piece was, because we built in a physical thing, so that this sort of Skype thing would happen, it'd be live with the performer. I can't remember where, I think they were in Finland, and then the audience, I said, I want the audience to leave with something. I don't want them to just have like this experience with the performer and then walk away from whatever the room they're in. And so we built in a kind of gift that was given to the audience. So at the end of the, it was like a half hour piece, they walked out of their whatever little room it was somewhere in the mess of Edinburgh, and they were given like a stone. I was really interested in kind of like something they could hold in their hand, and they walked away with. Then it became like their little gift, then a kind of memory, a souvenir, memento of this experience that they had. And I thought something tangible too, which I thought was a really lovely thing. And so they built that into the live experience for the audience, sort of witnessing the piece virtually. So I think there might be interesting ways of doing that, even in a digital realm.
That it's so interesting that you say that. So a lot of the work we were doing with the Tate Exchange was one-to-one interactions that were very driven by objects and textures and the touch, the sense of touch, and and it's such a, and as you were saying, the tension of that being so present in the play, and in the desires of all of these characters after all of this time in isolation feels so very, very potent at the moment. And I love that. I love what you're saying about the tension around it being digital. I mean, that's something I really, when performing on Zoom, you're contending constantly with delay and glitches, and even though we were able to record this, and we did record it to include everyone, there were still glitches there, and what they always give you is that frisson. They give you that kind of the liveness and the sense that we're all holding this up together and supporting each other, and it's very theatrical, actually. Yeah.
But there's also something. Yeah, sorry to bother you, Rebecca. There's something truly interesting. I was commenting to Tim Crouch the other day about, because a lot of his work is like, I want you to see this when I'm showing you something else. And I was like, but that's happening on Zoom all the time. In fact, a lot of the digital work that I've been seeing on the Zoom stage, as I call it, the work that I'm attracted to the most, even though there are a lot of really cool people doing some cool stuff with digital backgrounds and design, but actually the work that I'm really interested in is the work that that kind of goes against that sort of says, hi, I'm in a forest and we just see somebody's apartment. And I'm like, well, that's theater. That's what theater does all the time,
and so and I'll believe you. Yeah,
we'll believe it. Like, I believe you're in a forest. Fine.
Oh, lovely. So look, guys, I think we've probably got time for one more question. If we have anything burning that people want to say or comment or ask. How are we doing? How are you all fixed? Are you feel you've had your fill of Caridad?
You're done. Enough of her. She's been prattling on for an hour. What's going on here?
I've also had them working since 9:30 this morning, so brilliant. Well, look, I think in that case, then maybe we should just say a huge thank you. It's just wonderful to talk to you about the play and your work, and to get your thoughts and your insights. So thank you
super
so
cool.
much. Yeah, and thank you all of the company for all of your work as well. Really, really lovely. Round of applause to you. and that's the last in our summer activities as well, actually. So you've been a lovely ending to all of that as well. So thank you so much, Caridad.
Thank you all. You did great. I love you all.
Yeah.
Yay.
Love you.
Yay. Bye.